And that's so pernicious because that ruins our possibility of knowing him. Now, Lucifer, we know too from the church, was given a certain amount of liberty in the beginning until Christ came. And once Christ died on the cross, he was bound in chains. And the church was given 1,000 years, it was said, in which to flourish. We got that 1,000 years. And according to all of the fathers, what they teach, and the revelations which the church has declared as authentic, that 1,000 years expired about the 1700s or 1800s. And we now are in a moment when Satan was loosed, and again the voice of revelation and the voice of tradition and the voice of the teachers and the church and the saints and the popes comes in and say, but his loosing was only for 100 years, and that freedom of his is coming to an end in our day, in the 1990s. So we have been subject, therefore, to Lucifer's raging freedom to recoup what he lost. Because remember, in that 1,000 years between, say, the year 400 and the year 1400, Christianity spread. Whole peoples are converted. Whole of Europe was. And when they got to Mexico, they converted 8 million in 2 years. Remember, it was astounding. And Christianity did spread. And even today, Christianity is the biggest religion going, and the Catholic Church is 18% of the human race. It's almost 1 billion. So he lost an awful lot. A point about that, which we must always remark on, is this. It is dogmatic that not everybody will be saved. There is a destined group whom God has foreseen will cooperate with him and will be saved. But it's not a majority of people, and it's not all the people, which is an error people are pushing nowadays. In other words, so the 1,000 years probably raked in those souls that were to be saved and would cooperate, and the remnant then has struggled since the 1700s until today. And I think that if one looks, and we may in these talks, in these tapes, we may touch on the evidence we now have that Satan is having his last stand. This is his Waterloo, but he's going to kill off, destroy much, scorched earth policy, destroy as much as he can before he finally is shoved down into the abyss again, chained by Michael. And then the reign of Our Lady and the Sacred Heart of Jesus will take place. I'm putting a lot of doctrine and revelation and conclusion into that, but that's the position of Satan. There's one more thing about Lucifer which we should remember, and it's this. We have no protection against him of ourselves. No one can match him on this earth. No one. He can deceive anybody. St. Paul says that he transforms himself into an angel of light. And therefore, no matter how lofty you think your motive is, no matter how correct you think your doctrine is, you need protection. And that protection comes to a Catholic, a Christian, a Catholic, especially in two ways. It comes from the voice of the church, when the church speaks, with a clear voice. Sometimes I wish our churchmen spoke with a clearer voice, but anyway, when the church speaks, and the magisterium, as we call it, which nowadays has been rather mute in the voices of its appointed speakers. And number two, you have the protection of Michael and the angels. That's their function. And remember this, that the reason, to go back to Lucifer's beginnings, we know from the fathers that the crisis between him and God consisted about Christ, concerned Christ. Apparently, to use human language, Lucifer and his angels were shown Jesus Christ as a baby and as a man wandering around Palestine, barefoot, a scrawny Palestinian with a beard and a robe on him, with not a penny, very few pennies in the purse, and he was asked to adore him. And he was shown a vision of this man crucified, which is the same as being hanged. And he was told to adore this thing of clay. And to ask Lucifer to do that? No. He wanted to be up on the mountain of the Most High in the congregation of the North, to be equal to God. He wasn't going to do that.
So it was the sin of pride?
Of course, sin of pride. Sin of pride. He was going to be it. Now, the reason that God did that was that he gave the option to all the angels. This is going to be the situation. You will service this man and his followers. You will protect them. Part of you will be up beside my throne, praying for them and making their prayers ascend to my heart. The other part of you will be steward angels. You will guard their feet. You will guard their houses. You'll protect them from wild animals. You'll cure them when they're ill. You'll stave them off when they're feeling guilty, when they're cruel. You'll remind them that they're children of God and they're supposed to be faithful to my laws. Will you do this? Option. Freedom. Or completely autonomous. Lucifer and his people said, no, we're angels. A thing of a lump of clay, born in a bed between the legs of a woman, and finally expiring and being eaten by worms, and we are immortal, and you want us to. So he refused. So it is the sin of pride. And that's why the one great God is to call on the angels, because we don't use them at all. And the funny thing about the angels and Lucifer is this. The funny thing about the angels is that if you don't call on them, they don't be very active. If you call on them and expect about 40% from them, they'll give you 40%. If you call on them and expect 90%, they'll give you 90%. If you call on them and expect 100%, not hoping, hope, as somebody said, is a very good companion but a bad guide. You must believe you're going to get 100%. If you do, you'll get 100%. It's a funny way God has of treating us. The same is true for Our Lady too. At La Salette, when she's speaking to two children, they said, how can we believe you, Lady, Madame? And she said, if you believe in me, I'll believe in you. There's a quid pro quo with God, because he's consented to treat us like that. So with Satan, with Lucifer, as I prefer to call him, those are the only two protections we have against him. Because St. Peter says he's like a lion going around seeking whom he may devour. And he is intent on eviscerating the church, on corrupting your soul and my soul, destroying priesthood, removing the tabernacle, destroying all chastity and purity, completely destroying the family, and producing a world in which there is no church, there is no compassion, there is no pity, there is no love, there is no gentleness, and there is only death and pain and destruction. I work with Satanists who are reformed, and they all tell me the three tests they have to go through in order to become a Satanist, an official Satanist. We'll touch on their existence, by the way, in a later conversation here today. But they have to kill, show they're indifferent to death. Usually they have a puppy dog or a cat or a kitten or something, or a bird. And they have to burn to show a love for fire. And thirdly, they have to be cruel. Not kill, but just cruel. Cause a dog or a cat or a bird or a human being to scream at pain but not kill them, and love to do it. That's the world of Lucifer. And by the way, if you look around at what we consider the blots in our landscape, whether it's Los Angeles or San Francisco or New York or cities in Canada, wherever it is, or Paris or London, what we call the seamy side, the inhuman side, is always filled with what? Death, arson, cruelty to children, to women, to men. So Satan's thumb mark is everywhere, the cloven hoof.
And what are devils?
Devils are those angels who went with Lucifer. They see, you could ask me, and many people have, how many are there? Bernard, in this room, how many people are there sitting?
2?
That's right. And how do you know that? You count. One body, two bodies, second body. Now, an angel hasn't got a body. You can't count them numerically. That's the difficulty. In that world of the spirit, there is no numerical separation, because they are spirits, and they haven't got a body, and they're spirits that cannot die. So in our language, there are zillions, there are millions of them. Christ said at the drop of a hat in Gethsemane standing, when Peter drew his sword, he said, put up your sword. If I asked my Father for one, he'd send a legion. And a legion in his mouth meant hundreds of thousands of angels immediately to defend him. And they're there because they don't take up any space. This whole thing about how many angels stand on the head of a pin is an old Protestant reproach for Catholic philosophers. The head of a pin they don't stand on anything. They're immaterial, but they're real. They're real. Everybody has one. Everybody has a guardian angel. And we are told by some of the fathers, everybody has a devil assigned to them, depending on their character. If I'm a sensuous character, I have one who wants to tempt me sensually and sexually. If I'm greedy and avaricious, it'll be from money and all the other various things. But we know from exorcism, by the way, that the devils specialize. And they're very stupid outside that when you get talking to them. They're extremely stupid. But in their métier, in their actual profession, what they're experiencing, whether intellectual or they're scientific or mathematical or what, they're very, very clever. They've got their material down pat. So they're formidable things to come up against, and they're very active.